Hello everyone, this is Ig Arthur, or E.G. Arthur, if you prefer, and here's a video about the Treasure Bugan event. This event has been on a long hiatus. In fact, I think it wasn't even on the events calendar for a while because SSG was working on a lag issue. When the Bugan spawned in previous iterations of the Treasure Bugan event, there was a really bad lag spike. And they worked on that, and I'm happy to report that according to my testing and experience this year, the lag spike is greatly reduced. It is very much improved. So kudos to SSG for that. There is still a slight hiccup, as you'll see in the video, but it's much better than it was before. So as a quick overview of the Treasure Bugan event, for those who are new to it or perhaps don't remember it that well from last year, since it's been so long, the Treasure Bugan is a goblin-like creature that during the event, it'll appear in certain scaled instances. And there's a list of the instances that it appears in on the Locho Wiki site. You can tell whether a Bugan is capable of spawning in a scaled instance by whether Theodore Gorse, the Theodore Gorse NPC, is near the entrance or not. Theodore Gorse gives quests and also barters for items. In order for the Bugan to spawn, by the way, the instance needs to be set to your level or higher. So you can't cheese it by running lower level instances. All right, so under normal circumstances, the Bugan is not guaranteed to spawn. It's reportedly about 75% chance, and that comports with my personal experience as well. But you can barter with Theodore Gorse for an item, a lucky feather. It costs 10 mithril, and then for some period of time, I forget how long, it provides a buff that guarantees that you'll get a Bugan spawn. So once the Bugan spawns, you have 1 minute to defeat it. Well, a quest will pop up, and then from the time the quest pops up and the Bugan is spawned, you have 1 minute to defeat it. Otherwise, he just escapes, and you don't get any credit for it. One thing about that quest is that auto-bestowed quest, once it pops up, then there is a cooldown of about 6 minutes until it can pop up again, even if you spawn a Bugan before that. So, and I'll show that in the video. Now, a lot of people say 5 minutes. That it's a 5-minute cooldown. I think they're counting the cooldown, however, from the end of the 1 minute timer that you have to defeat the Bugan, because what I've discovered is that if you're in that 5 to 6 minute range, you don't get the quest. So I think it's really a 6-minute cooldown from the time the quest pops up until it's capable of popping up again. So that's the overview of the Treasure Bugan event. My focus here is on two different things at once. One is solo play, and I know that Firebro Jedi's excellent guide on the Treasure Bugan also has a section on solo play, but I want to expand on that a bit. But the other dimension I want to bring into play here is the use of plugins. Now, last year, I published a use case, a video, in the same place as this one, last year, a use case for the Treasure Bugan for the GenOut plugin, GenOut, which is a plugin I maintain. It's a fork of an earlier plugin written by Garen called Alerter. And this use case basically consists of a trigger. The trigger is based on the bestowal of that quest when the Bugan spawns, which then puts up an image. The image, then, if you click on it, it is actually a quick slot to an alias, which then executes the follow command. I know that's kind of a long connected sequence of events, but in simple terms, the Bugan appears, the quest pops up, an image appears, you click on the image, and after targeting the Bugan, and then it'll execute a follow on the Bugan. The main purpose of this is for melee classes and characters. The Bugan tends to bob and weave around a lot, so he can be hard to hit if you're a melee class, unless you do a follow. And this is just a convenient way to execute the follow on that Bugan. So that's what the use case was that I created and released last year. There was, however, a flaw in that use case. There is a once per event bestowed quest, and it just so happens that when you accept that quest, the text for accepting the quest is a superset of the quest that pops up when the Bugan spawns. So my plugin config was triggering on that quest as well as the quest that comes up when the Bugan spawns, and it was putting up an image and with a quick slot and all that stuff, even though it was totally inappropriate. I had a fix for that last year, but unfortunately I wasn't able to test it because I ran out of time and the event ended, and it didn't start again until this year. So now I've had a chance to test it. In the description of my YouTube video from last year, I describe the fix. All it is to put a $sign after the pattern in the trigger part of the config, and then save it, and then it won't trigger. Or you could just ignore the fact that it triggers when it's not supposed to. I'm not going to release a new version of GenOut just for that one character fix, but it will be incorporated into future versions. Another thing that I've done, however, this year, and for this video, is I've also brought to bear another plugin written by someone else, and a much larger and more sophisticated plugin called Gibberish. And what Gibberish does is it sets up timers both for the 1 minute timer that you have to defeat the Bugan, and then the 6-minute timer that you have until that quest can auto bestow again. So you'll see that in the video. All right, so let's start rolling the footage here. Here's a brawler of mine on Evernight, Thick Fist, and he's just freshly logged in, and he gets the pop-up quest for the first time for the Treasure Bugan event. And when he accepts that event, when he accepts that quest, you'll notice what doesn't happen. What doesn't happen is that neither of those plugins is triggering anything, because both of them have a refined pattern match which doesn't accidentally match that particular string. So you don't get any bogus pop-ups there. All right, so now he has the quest. Let me head off to one of the instances that that will spawn a Bugan, and I'm picking one of the instances that's listed on Wiki and on Fibro Jedi's guide, that it's listed as no combat. And the reason it's no combat is because if you walk straight forward from the entrance, past Theodore Gorse, and stand right in front of the Nazgul, that's where the Bugan spawns. So I'll do that, and there we go. I was lucky. The Bugan spawned. I'll freeze frame this and point out a couple things. On the upper right-hand side is the image that GenOut is generating. And once you target the Bugan and then click on that image, you'll do a follow, which will help to keep you pointed towards the Bugan and in range of your melee attacks. On the upper right-hand corner, more or less, Gibberish is now popping up with a couple of different timers. One of them is the 60-second timer for that you have to defeat the Bugan, and the other is the 6-minute timer before that quest will pop up again. So let me unfreeze that. And if you look at my keystrokes, you see, because I'm following, you only see melee skills being fired off. You don't see any WASD movement skills fired. So that makes things more efficient and allows me to defeat the Bugan within the 1-minute timer. Now, once you defeat the Bugan in this instance, you want to quickly get back to the entrance, because if you dilly-dally too long in the arena there, the gates will come up and you'll be trapped and you'll be fighting mobs, and they will interrupt any attempt to leave the instance. So you don't want to be caught there. You want to get out as soon as possible. All right, so let me point out a couple things about or one particular aspect of Gibberish. Now that I have these timers up, if I go to the Gibberish icon and right-click, go to Move Windows, you see I can move those UI elements around. I could also change the height and the width. I would recommend keeping it wide enough so that all the text is on one line. Otherwise, it wraps around and it can be hard to read. You can turn off the grid lines while you're moving things around if they annoy you. But if you want precise alignment of something, those grid lines are useful. So that's how you customize the output. All right, so now that we have the cooldown timer ticking down, I want to just validate the fact that I won't get any credit for killing a Bugan that spawns before that cooldown timer is expired. So let me go into another instance, and I'm going into the battle for Erebor, which is part of the Road to Erebor cluster. It's available from level 20. Doesn't require any discovery, I don't believe. It's possible you may have to have accepted the Gandalf quest, the one that teleports you to Rivendell before this unlocks, but I'm not exactly sure about that. Anyhow, the battle for Erebor doesn't have a bunch of lengthy dialogue that you have to wait for, but it does have a fair distance that you need to travel to get to the Bugan spawn point. So I'm heading up the ramp here, over the bridge, up some more ramp. Hello, Dory. Hello, Nori. Goodbye, Dory. Goodbye, Nori. Pass them by. See you later. Through the portal. Now I need to go down the stairs. Now, the two Getharig down the bottom there are not going to activate unless you click on the items to the sides of the stairs. So this is truly a no combat, no risk of combat instance, other than, of course, the Bugan itself, which doesn't damage you. So let me go down and see if we can spawn the Bugan. Yes, we are lucky this time. Now, instead of just leaving this instance, what I'm going to demonstrate, I'm going to kill the Bugan and show you that I get no credit, but also I'm not going to do a follow. And just so that I'm going to be moving at the same time as I'm using my melee skills, you'll see how difficult it is and how much less efficient my DPS is as I try to move around and hit the Bugan. Sure, I can defeat the Bugan within 1 minute, but I have to work a lot harder than if I did a follow. All right, so the Bugan is defeated, but I got no credit because the cooldown timer has not expired yet. All right, so let me get out of this one, and I'm going to go to another one. My second or third preference would be the flight to the Lonely Mountain. But I do want to point out something here about the Fires of Smaug, which is not my favorite. It is technically no combat, but with a big caveat. The big caveat is that if you wander too close to the boss, he'll activate, and then you'll get lots of combat. Remember, this needs to be done at your level or higher, and it's a 12-man instance, basically a raid. So if you activate the boss, a bunch of mobs show up, and they will pretty much squash you, even if you're a tank. Unless you have a dedicated healer, you're not likely to survive, and let alone defeat the Bugan. So here we go. I have to squeeze my way around the side there, trying not to get too close to the boss, and head over here. And I was lucky again. There's the Bugan. This time I'm going to do a manual follow. Some people say that you can accidentally activate the boss just by fighting with the Bugan or attacking the Bugan. I actually don't think that's possible unless you don't have follow-on and you just swing too far out. If you have follow enabled on the Bugan, I think there's no risk. At least the several times that I've done it, I've never accidentally activated the boss while defeating the Bugan. So I defeated the Bugan, and yet again, I didn't get any credit for it because the cooldown timer hadn't expired. All right, so that's 3 no combat instances. There are more, as I mentioned. There's Flight to the Lonely Mountain. There's also Dungeons of Dol Guldur, but that one also comes with a big caveat. You have to dodge the Getharig, otherwise they will teleport you to the beginning, and they can even do that while you're fighting the Bugan, in theory. So, which would be bad. So I really, really dislike that one. I hate that one, even though there's technically no combat involved. I hate that one even more than Fires of Smaug. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to an instance that actually does have some combat. But among those, I would choose an instance that has a solo option. I'm choosing here Woe of the Willow. That one is not only solo, but you also get a helper. You get Marigold Buffin, who heals you. I don't think she tanks at all. At least I haven't noticed her tanking much, but she does heal you. And as you'll see later, that will come in handy. So I'm gonna summon her and head up and start killing wood trolls and creeping roots. As you can see, I'm not having much trouble with these. The Brawler, well, part of it is that the Brawler is an OP class, but part of it is also that this is a solo instance, so these mobs have less morale and do less damage than they would in the 3-man. So just make my way through. There's kind of a gauntlet here with creeping roots and some wood trolls. I'll just slice my way through that. All right, so I'm done with all that. Now I go to the right, open the vine curtain. There's only one more mob that stands between me and the Bugan spawn point, and that is the first boss. So let's start and kick that off. The only attack of the first boss that I really care about is the one called Sweeping Limbs. And the reason I care about it is because if you look closely, you'll see that there are red puddles around the arena that appear once the fight starts. Those puddles do quite a bit of damage, and the Sweeping Limbs attack is a very long knockback, and they can knock you back into the red puddles, and that can cause a lot of damage. On 3-man, that's a big problem. They do huge amounts of damage and quite often will defeat you. On solo, they don't do as much damage, and you have a healer. So let's continue. And you'll see, I said that I'm worried about it, and usually I can run away from the boss quick enough to avoid getting punted. But in this case, my timing was a little off, and I did get punted. But fortunately, Marigold was able to completely heal me up shortly afterwards, and so it was not a big deal. The striking blows attack is a short knockback. I don't really care about that. And if you jump right at the point of impact, oftentimes you hardly get knocked back at all, or sometimes you don't even get knocked back. You just kind of jump up and fall back down again into the same spot. So, all right, let me continue. And all right, so he's defeated. I'm not even going to bother with the chest. I'm just going to move on to the Bugan spawn point and cross my fingers and hope that I get a spawn. There we go. And I get, let me click on the image. Let me target the Bugan, click on the image, and now I'm following, and I do my melee attacks. You see the 2 gibberish timers have gone off. I've started ticking down, and there we go. The Bugan is defeated. I get credit for it. Yay me. All right, let me leave this instance. And the final instance I want to show for this character is the Chamber of Shadows, otherwise known as Askad Mazal. Woe of the Willow, by the way, the one I just did, is level 20 minimum, no discovery requirement. Although I do believe you need, I always get these mixed up, either Blood of Azog or Wells of Langflood. If you're VIP, you have access to those automatically. But if you're not, you would have to buy or get those quest packs, one of those quest packs with a coupon code in order to be able to run that instance. This one here, the Chamber of Shadows, does require discovery, level 50 minimum, and also requires one of the quest packs. One of them is Blood of Azog, and the other is Wells of Langflood. I can never remember which is which. So you can look that up later. So this one, you also get a helper, Frethy, and he will heal you. He will also tank, so he's very useful. This one is more challenging in some ways, especially the end boss. But you'll see in solo mode, it's really not that big of a deal, especially with your helper. All right, so let's start clearing here. You've got the oozes, you've got the nameless creatures of various sizes and strengths. The oozes drop puddles. And one thing that's annoying about this instance is those puddles keep you in combat for a long time. So you don't get a rest. You don't get an out of combat rest very often here. All right, clearing. As you clear the groups of mobs, the smoke walls come down. Then you get another group of mobs. Finally, you get to this guy, the Shadowed World Eater, and the Bugan spawn point is right near him. So, which can be problematic if you're if your character's a little bit marginal on health or DPS or survivability in general. So let me spawn the Bugan, or try to, and again, I'm lucky. I got very lucky in this video. All 5 times I was able to spawn a Bugan, which is actually kind of improbable, but I was lucky, even without a feather. All right, so I'm doing a manual follow here, and the Bugan is dead, but I've got this big guy to deal with. But with Frethy's help, it's really not that much of an issue, and he's defeated. Now, just for the fun of it, I'll also do the end boss. That'll take a little longer. But again, with Frethy's help, shouldn't be an issue. Lead it off. He stops halfway through and basically throws away his disguise and shows his true face. Now, if I were doing this as a 3-man or my character was weaker, this fight would take longer and he would be summoning oozes that would be dropping puddles. But because everything is going swimmingly here, I actually don't get any oozes. And from the chest, I actually got an upgrade. At least I consider it an upgrade. I lose about 2 percentage points of my physical mastery and some evade, but I gain some finesse, which was a little on the low side, and I gain a whole lot of vitality. So I'm happy about that. So that's all I want to show you on this character, but I also want to show you another instance that I like to run for Bugan hunting, and that is the Harrowing of Morgul. This one is a level 121 minimum, but it has no discovery requirement or quest requirement or anything else. You just need to be level 121 and have the minus Morgul expansion, and you can run the instance. So let me go in. This is another brawler. This is originally was my Shadowfax brawler that I transferred to Gladden. And let me start the instance. I don't think you have to pick up that quest from Dolenthal, but I do anyway, just out of habit. And start clearing the groups. There are groups of 2 or 3 that you need to. Some of the groups have defilers. Some of the groups have sergeants. Those have more morale, and they also heal. So usually you want to take those out first. Clearing. You need to clear all of the mobs before the first barricade crumbles. Then work on the groups in front of the second barricade, and the second barricade crumbles. All right, now, if I were running this instance normally, rather than for Bugan purposes, I would skip over this here so that I could bypass one of the groups before I get to the first boss. However, when you're doing the Treasure Bugan, it's kind of pointless to do that because the Treasure Bugan appears right next to that group that you would have bypassed. And so while you're fighting the Treasure Bugan, you're going to aggro that group anyway. So you may as well just not bother with that bypass and just head there normally. Let me spawn the Bugan. Okay, the Bugan is spawned. I'm doing a follow. And the Bugan is dead, but now I have to deal with the group, and there's a sergeant in that group. I think the sergeant also does more damage than other mobs as well. You see, I get kind of low on health. If I were a more marginal character or a more marginal class, that might be an issue. But as it is, it worked out just fine. All right, so before I wrap up the video, I do want to show a blooper. I don't normally do bloopers, but while I was trying to create this video on one of my characters, I was doing the Fires of Smaug, and remember I said that if you get too close to the boss, it activates and you're going to be squashed flat. Well, here's what it looks like when you get too close to the boss, and all of a sudden you've got a whole raid's worth of on-level mobs to deal with. Yeah, that didn't end well. Okay, so anyhow, hopefully you find that useful. The export for the gibberish, I should say the import, the file that you can import to set up gibberish for that alert, I'll publish in the description of this video. The Treasure Bugan use case is already part of the GenOut distribution. However, if you want to prevent it from that false triggering, you do need to make that one change, add that $sign to the trigger pattern and save it. But that's it. That's soloing the Treasure Bugan with plugin assistance. And hopefully you found it useful, and I will catch you on the next video.